A lot of people put standing on stage in front of people as a public speaker as pretty scary. But a lot of business owners I've spoken to over the years, myself included, would put up selling as a pretty scary thing to do in business, or something that we're not naturally inclined to do feelings around. It can divide the room, which is why today on the Social Butterfly, I've invited along Bill McIntosh, who is a bit of a sales guru. He's a sales consultant and remote sales closer and the founder at SalesSquad Sales Consultancy. He talks a lot about helping people rather than selling to people, and he talks a lot about authenticity in sales, and I'd love to chat with him and crack open the conversation around sales. So, hey, Bill, how are you?
Hey, Katrina, fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for having me. And how are you this morning? Or I should say this evening for you.
I know, it's time zones.
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
great. I'm excited about this conversation because sales is something that's been close to my heart and something that got in the way for me growing my business. I was very nervous about doing sales. I didn't like it. I talked myself right into a corner about not being good at it, about, cold calling and being really nervous about getting on the phone or even making the ask, right? Down to the point where I wouldn't even say to somebody, follow my page, let alone buy my thing, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
I would love to talk with you a little bit about it. So first off, I've got your bio here. I love a little bit of a story. Tell me, you grew up in a community of 10,000 people.
Yes.
Your
Yes.
parents owned a small retail business, which is what
Yeah.
your introduction into sales?
Yeah, it was. They owned a small new and used furniture business. And I'm going way, way back now, but my sales training officially started at would have been around the age of 12, probably, maybe 13 at the latest, where I would just sort of follow my dad around the store when he was, working with customers that walked in to have a look at furniture. We used to sell a lot to newlywed couples, that sort of thing. And I was really fascinated by how people would walk in, feeling pretty guarded, not knowing what to expect. And by the time they left the store, they were laughing, sharing jokes, and it was like they were long time friends. And that journey that people would go on from, start coming into the store being very guarded and a bit offish to best old friends, so to speak. That journey really fascinated me, and I knew then I wanted to learn how to do that. And fortunately, my dad was very keen on sharing with me, how to do that, how to take people on that journey. And it really boiled down to some very simple basics, as these things often do. Uh, his one golden rule is treat everyone the way you would want to be treated. And don't try to sell to people, just help them buy if it's the right thing for them. So those are just a couple of the basic foundational pieces that I took away, and they've served me all my life.
It's so funny you say that, just help people. It's such an
Yeah.
interesting, not even spin, it just changes the conversation a little bit, doesn't it? Because not everything's fair. The thing I'll touch on before we
Correct.
move on is you went and started, you're selling children's encyclopedias door to door. Now that's an experience. What was that like?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did that
So the
teach you everything you
backstory on
needed to
that
know?
is,
Yeah.
sorry?
I was just going to say, no, you keep going.
Yeah. So the backstory on that very quickly is I was living in Toronto, Canada. My wife was living in France. She was French. Well, my girlfriend at the time, and we had decided to get married. And so I needed to fly to France to get married, and I didn't have any money. And I saw an ad in the classified section in the newspaper. This is well before the internet, where it said earn up to $1,000 a week, full training, et cetera, et cetera. And funny enough, I needed $1,000 for a return ticket and enough spending money. And so I walked into the office for my interview, and the guy had a photograph, a photocopy of a $1,000 bill blown up and pinned on the wall. And there was a contest to see whoever sold the most encyclopedias in 2 weeks would get this bonus. And I was hooked. I didn't even need to interview. I said, let's go. And so, long story short, I won the contest selling kids' encyclopedias door to door. I rode around in a very conspicuous looking van into neighborhoods with lots of kids' toys on the lawns. They drop us off, and we would go hit doors. And so, yeah, I won the contest, flew to France, got married, and the rest is sort of history. Funny enough, we just had our 42nd wedding anniversary on Monday. So,
Wow,
yeah,
congratulations.
thank you.
So that,
Thank
so that
you.
was
I
worth
think
that
it's
was
going to
worth
work.
$40.
I got a good feeling about this woman. I think it's going to work out, Katrina.
Yeah. Seems to be so far, right?
Yeah, so far so good.
Yeah. So that's incentive, isn't it, when it comes to
Yeah,
selling,
totally.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, totally.
I think I could talk a long time about the experience of door to door, but because that I think is such good grounding for sales. But I want to sort
Yeah.
of jump into a little bit
And
around.
that wasn't even the hardest door-to-door sales job I did.
So what
I
was the
did
hardest
one
and
other.
why?
I was selling packaged frozen food
Wow.
in January, door to door in Toronto, with 8-foot snowbanks and blizzards blowing all around me, and I was selling frozen food. So yeah, that was interesting. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no. So what I'm picking up on there is like even in today's world where we're learning to sell online, at least we can do it in the comfort of our own home, right? It's not like we're even outside
Oh,
knocking on doors and freezing
it's a
cold,
whole
right?
other world.
Even
Yeah.
that alone is different. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm super interested in sort of the experience of door to door. Like that's, I can hear another person I know. I can't even remember how many cold calls, like millions of dollars worth of cold calls. And since he's done that, he can sell anywhere, right? So what was it for you
Correct.
that made you have that skill and go, that's it, I'm done now, I've got it?
You mean to transition from door to door, or
Sort of.
to go into door to door to begin with?
Well, okay, because I would think door to door is the hard thing. So there's something before that was there that made you go, okay, I can do door to door. What was it? What was it in your career where you said, okay, I've done the hardest thing. I'm good now.
Yeah. It was cold calling. It was phone sales,
Right.
telesales.
Yeah.
That was my first official sales job, and that was tough.
Yeah.
Um, but it was the same principle as going door to door, where you've got anywhere from 3 to 7 seconds to create a rapport, get their interest, make sure they don't, scream at you and hang up. And it was the same thing with the door to door. You had literally a couple of seconds to grab their attention, and it was all about timing. For example, with the food, the line was, as soon as they opened the door, do you like good food? And they're stunned, right? You're standing there. I was standing there with my parka, with my big fur hood lining, with um, just in the middle of this blizzard, and they were stunned. Yeah, stay right there. I'll be right back. And the key was to spin around and start running back to the truck to get the food to bring back and show them on their doorstep before they had a chance to say, no, 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 wait, I'm not interested. And the so what's interesting is I read so much now, we all do, about when you're selling online, whether it's email marketing or social media posting, whatever, you've only got 2 to 3 seconds to grab their attention and get them to continue reading or continue watching, whatever. I mean, that's not a new concept. It's interesting with younger people that so many things that were the foundation of what I learned, 40 plus years ago, they're repackaging it as something new and a new technique we've discovered in sales or whatever, and it's kind of funny actually. But so yeah, so from telesales to door, I actually found door easier than telesales because you can look into their eyes, they can get a sense of who you are. And I think the one thing that was really ingrained in me from all the training with my dad was people always got that sense that I was trustworthy, they could trust me. And we pick up on these things. We all do. We all pick up on these things instinctively. And the only time we get into trouble is when we ignore that, that instinct, that gut, that intuition. And that's when we get into trouble. So that's why I always found actually face to face sales easier. And now, of course, it's the best of both worlds with Zoom, which is what I do these days, remote sales closing for other companies. So
Okay.
yeah, I can work from home but it's still face to face.
All right. I'm going to lean into a little bit around the fear of selling and then come back in around the
Yeah.
skill of selling. So a lot of business owners I speak to, they're solo operators. They're doing it themselves. They're doing everything themselves.
Yeah.
They start with their passion. They want to share this passion with the world. They've got a great solution,
Yeah.
perhaps that's the passion, and they're ready to take it to the world. And then
Yeah.
they've got to, they think the solution is good enough to sell itself. It feels like it should be.
Yeah.
They get to the point where now they've got to take it to market and they've got to sell it. And they're like, oh my God, I don't want to be that person, right? I don't want to be that salesperson. I don't want to look like that or be that used car salesman or, and that's
Yeah.
the word they use, right? And
Yeah.
funnily enough, I have learnt a lot from a particular used car salesman that I know, right? Very, very skillful in it, right? But people have a preconception of what sales is, myself
Yes.
included beforehand. So there's a fear around making the ask. There's a fear around looking a certain way. Can you talk into that and share, maybe acknowledge it and then talk about how you possibly overcome it?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, Katrina. So let me start by saying this. All of those fears of concern and concerns are completely legitimate. You don't want to come across like a sleazy salesperson. And yes, it's true. There are, like in any industry, used car sales included, there are exceptions. But yeah, that's an easy go-to because they do have a bad reputation. They've done a lot to deserve that bad reputation, as have estate agents, and which is an industry I worked in for 30 years. But that's the first thing. That's a legitimate concern. And so if I can share one golden nugget is um, acknowledge that concern, acknowledge that fear, and don't sell. Don't try to sell to people. I mean, that's your this is the epiphany that I had many years ago, that really finally clicked for me. And once it did, I then went on to almost effortlessly close close to $300 million in sales in my career. And the epiphany was this: don't sell to people, just help them buy when it's the right thing for them. Because we all have a fear as buyers of making a wrong decision and regretting it later. And I see my role as a salesperson, as a sales professional, my role is to help people get out of their own way and make a decision that's going to benefit them. And that's why we can I want to share some very concrete takeaways on the call for your audience. And I'll share some, some really powerful ways to open up a sales call so that you can break down those barriers instantly. Because one thing is for sure, every one of your audience members, when they get on a sales call, the person on the other side of the call is expecting to be sold to, and they're going to have barriers up and resistance up. And there are some very easy yet powerful techniques to smash those barriers so that you have a great experience on the call, and so does your prospect. You both come away feeling very, very good about the exchange. So that would be my first piece of advice: is just simply stop trying to sell to people and start to help them buy.
I want to lean into processes because I think, myself again included, you would jump on a sales call as the seller and think you had
Hmm.
to close in that call. There's also that's that misconception that you've got to close in the first one. We're here to sell, let's close. And
Yep.
perhaps it's not understanding your own systems and understanding your own sales first before you
Right.
decide where that close is. Definitely a timeline where you go, okay, that's enough, right? But maybe it's a
Yeah.
two-step process, or maybe some other things have to happen first before that sales call or that prospect is qualified enough. Can you talk about that a bit?
Sure. Absolutely. And you're right. You have to understand, first of all, it goes back to, and this is where it overlaps with marketing. You only want to find yourself in sales conversations with your ideal prospect, your ideal avatar. That's the first thing.
Mm,
Because if you're on the call with your ideal avatar, they already they're probably problem aware and
mm.
are seeking a solution. And you just need to help them understand that you do have the best solution, of course, if that's the case. And so that's the first thing. You want to be on the call with an ideal prospect. Secondly, you need to, that idea of I've got to close the sale, I'm on this call to close a sale, that's part of the mindset garbage that we need to get rid of. That's not the objective of the call. When I get on a call with someone, my mindset and my approach to the call is very similar to a doctor. Can you imagine going to a doctor's office for the appointment, and as soon as you walk into the doctor's office, he starts his pitch and saying, "Oh, I'm so glad we got to connect today. I've got this new medication. You've got to try this. Let me write you a prescription. It's the best medication. No other doctor has it. I've got lots of social proof that other patients have been cured and blah, blah, blah." You'd be like, wait a minute. You
I
don't even know
know
why
where
I'm here. You don't even know what, right? And
that.
so I approach every sales call with, okay, let's first diagnose what's going on with you. What are the issues? What are the problems? And then if I have a solution for those problems, great, we'll get to that. We can discuss the pros and cons. And that's essentially how I will open up every sales conversation is, I'll say right off the bat, something along the lines of, great to connect with you today. Um, Now, listen, I just want to be very clear, very transparent right off the bat. I don't know if we're a good fit or not. I don't know if I've got a solution for you. And even if I do, I don't know if it's the best solution for you. So, what I'd like to do over the next few minutes is just understand what's going on in your business. So, for example, if it's a marketing agency selling their services, let me find out what you've tried in the past, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what are you struggling with. So, in other words, let's diagnose what's really going on first. And just by simply having that mindset versus I got to close this sale because I need the cash flow,
Yeah.
that's going to be a huge game changer for people. Those two things: have the conversation with the right prospect, ideal prospect, and number two, get rid of all the garbage in your head about needing to close the sale. And then the final point, getting back to what you were saying, is yes, it's true. You sometimes can do a one call close, and other times it's a process, right? Depending what your product or service is, that sort of thing. And it's not necessarily related to price point either. I mean, right now I'm closing for one company. They've got an $18,000 offer, and I'm doing one call closes. So it's not really related to price. It's more about the mechanics of the product and service itself. But I think of it like, I think of it like I use the analogy of golf. If you're teeing off on a par five, you're not going don't shoot for a hole in one.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. It ain't going to happen. You got to do several layups to get into a putting position, to eagle or par the hole, or birdie the hole. So it's the same in sales. And that's something that's individual for everyone. They have to understand their own process. Does that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah, it's fantastic, because it wasn't until I started to delve into processes and look at that and just step back,
Yeah.
and understand that this can take time, that
Mm,
that I was able to really listen and also get a stronger understanding of my market, or the people that better. And if I just stood back, I was able to create different sorts of content to bring them through that's different on social media.
yes.
And I just found it relaxed the conversation a lot more. And in the end, we weren't selling. In the end, we were on a discovery sort of mission. And then
Yeah.
I've got to a point where I am like, okay, there's one call and maybe another call, and that should be about it usually. Give or
Yeah.
take here and there. There's always
Yeah.
other things. But yeah, and it's trial and error and figuring out what works. And that's business, right? Isn't it, as well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so the other thing I think ties into this, Katrina, that might serve people to understand is, and again, I think this is one of the things you wanted to dive into more, where I talk about selling without scripts.
Mm.
Every sales call for me has a framework. And like a painting, you want to paint within that frame, but the canvas is blank. And what I mean by that is, I'm a really big believer in everyone bringing their own personality and their own style to a sales call, rather than memorizing a script like a robot and repeating that when it completely doesn't feel natural. And my big pet peeve with all these sales training gurus is their classic answer, still to this day. And they were saying this 40 years ago when I started studying sales trainers. Their classic response to this is, oh, well, actors learn their lines and they come across very naturally. Okay, sure. But how the hell does that relate to anything? You know, surgeons learn how to use a scalpel and it comes very naturally to them. Does that mean I should start learning how to cut people up with a scalpel? Like there's no correlation between what an actor does for a living and what we as sales professionals or business owners should be doing. And so and the other thing is, yeah, we're not all Meryl Streep or, Robert De Niro. If you watch bad acting, it's horrendous. It's a train wreck.
It is, isn't it?
And that's one, yeah, it is. And that's one of the things I see business owners struggle with so much is they're trying to fit their personality and character into this really confined robotic script because they were taught or trained that's the way you're supposed to sell. It's bullshit. Forget all that garbage. Be you. You do you. The prospect will do the prospect, and everything will go much smoother. Because that's the other thing I say to these sales training gurus is, yeah, the other difference is everybody on set has the same script. They're all working off a script. When have you ever got on a sales call with a prospect and said to them, and the prospect says, well, I need to think about this. You don't say, oh, no, that's not your line. You're supposed to say, okay, Bill, where do I sign? Let's get started. That's your line. No, there is no script, right? I mean, when you put it in that context, it's ridiculous, but
That's
yeah.
true.
So anyway, that's the idea, the framework and understanding the process of, is it a one call situation, two call, etc. So you are following a procedure to get to the end goal of really understanding. And again, the end goal is not to close the sale. The end goal is to understand if you can help them or not. And if you can get them to the point of seeing, yes, you are the best solution, people close themselves. You don't need to close.
Just on that, would you agree, or would you say that when the person gets to the point where they're like, "Yep, that sounds great," you will need to say, "So, how shall we proceed. There's that, right? There's that final ask. It's the last little
Yeah.
question, right? And that's the bit
Yeah.
that we all get stuck on. So I think, yeah, we do have to make that ask, don't we?
Yes. And that's the scary part that
Yeah.
freaks a lot of people out. And the best advice I can give there is I've never gone skydiving, but I imagine it's a similar feeling. You just got to take a deep breath and jump out of the plane. Uh,
Right.
just take a deep breath and assume that they're going forward. Because again, if they have a genuine problem to solve, you have a genuine solution that's going to make all their problems go away and it works within their budget. Why wouldn't they go forward?
Yeah.
So just take a deep breath and like for example, a lot of the remote sales closing I do is when we get to that point of the call, I say something simply like, "So, which card would you like to use to put this on?"
Okay.
And
You
then
just say it like
I
that.
just don't say anything. Yeah, I mean, in the textbooks, they'll call that the assumptive close. But if you've done all the work leading up to that stage correctly, and there is a process to get there, but if you've done all the work, there's no reason why they're going to say anything other than, I think I'll use my visa, my business visa for this or whatever, right? Or, um, would you like me to send you over the contract for signature then so we can get started on this? Yeah, sure. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Essentially,
mean, it's that simple.
they just want to know what the next steps are, don't they? Like we all
Mhm.
do. They just want to know, what do we do now? Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
And
and they're looking to you as the professional, as the business owner, as the service provider. They're looking to you for that guidance. The worst thing you can do is leave them hanging in limbo,
yeah.
you
So
know? And I've seen this happen repeatedly where the business owner gets to that point of the call. We've all experienced it, where we get to that point of the call and we're so afraid to ask that last question that there's this awkward silence. And then, of course, they fill the silence with, okay, well, listen, Bill, this has been great today. Thanks. Let me think it over. Um, and then you're done. You're toast.
yeah,
You're dead. You're dead.
that's it.
You're dead in the water.
It's
So
all over
just
after that.
fill that silence
There's a
with,
couple of things I want to talk about.
yeah,
Yeah. Fill the silence with the offer, with ultimately the next step, the final step. I'm interested in, I'm just thinking about small business owners that are doing this on their own that maybe don't have sales training behind them. Do you think
yep.
sales skills come from necessity? Is it that you had to learn to sell, or is it that you're like, oh, this looks like a good idea, I'm going to become really great at this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are people that are more naturally um fit to, I don't know if fit is the right word. I think there are people where selling comes more naturally than others, but I don't think it's really anything to do with selling. It has to do more with people skills.
Hmm.
There are people that know how to communicate with other humans better than others. And that's just the way we're wired. You know, there's a reason why the programmers and the tech engineers at IBM aren't out in the field selling,
Yeah.
is because generally speaking, um, generally speaking, those types of individuals are great sitting in front of the screen doing coding and everything else that they do. But when it comes to interpersonal relations, you know, that's not their strong point. And vice versa. I don't know any great salespeople that are also computer
Right.
programmers. There's just different parts of the brain that get activated. And so I think it comes more naturally to some than others. Having said that, I think it's absolutely a skill set that can be learned. I
Yeah.
don't think there's, yeah, I don't think it's outside the realm of anyone's ability to learn how to effectively help people buy. Right?
And would you say that all small business owners should think about acquiring part of this skill, or at least, skilling in this area in some way, particularly if they're solo operators?
No, not necessarily. They should only consider learning how to effectively sell if they'd like to stay in business.
Yeah, okay. So it's
Right.
worthwhile.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
worthwhile sort of
Yeah.
learning how to at least get the training wheels on, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, 100%. Look,
Yeah,
sales are the lifeblood of your business.
yeah,
I think marketing is the oxygen.
yeah,
You have to have the marketing piece in place to generate the qualified leads to even get into a sales conversation. You can be the greatest salesperson in the world, but if you've got no one to talk to, eh, you're not going to get anywhere. Your business is going to go bust. So marketing, sales, and delivery of services, customer service, I think those are the three legs of the stool that every successful
yeah, for
business
sure.
needs. Take any one of those away, and you got nothing, as some of my friends from down south would say. So yeah, I think it's
All right.
critical, 100%.
And you've just said that any small business owner can learn selling. Let's just
Yes.
lean into authenticity. It's such a buzzword everywhere right now, and I actually take back the word buzzword around it. Due to chat and all the AI coming out, it's actually losing its buzzwordness and actually becoming real again. So authenticity in sales, people want to come across authentic. They don't
Yeah.
want to be that inauthentic salesperson. And on the other end, right, you want to be sold to, you want to experience, as you've already said, a great sales conversation when you're talking with somebody that's going to sell you something, right? You want to know that you're getting the right story. So
Yeah.
that leans into authenticity, and then around scripts and no scripts in selling. Can we chat on those three and sort of bring them in together? So what does it mean and how can we make it happen?
Okay. So authenticity, scripts versus no scripts, and what was the third one again?
Just literally being like having a good experience in the sales conversation for both
Okay.
parties.
Right. Okay. So let me start with the third one first. To have a great experience in a sales conversation is is going to happen by, first of all, forgetting everything you've ever been taught formally about how to sell and close sales, and using these 101 powerful closing techniques at the end and all that crap. Forget everything you've been taught if you've gone through formal training about selling, because the chances are there's a lot of really bad information in there. Forget about making a sale and just start off the call with trying to diagnose what their issues are, and listen attentively, and yeah, have genuinely and authentically be concerned about what their situation is, getting to the heart of the matter, and that's where the authenticity comes in. In other words, don't simply ask diagnostic style or discovery style questions as a tactic to close a sale. When you're asking those discovery questions, be authentic about it. Genuinely want to understand. And so that's where the authenticity part comes in. And trust me, if you're not authentic about that, people are going to pick up on that.
Mm,
You
straight
know,
away. Mm,
yeah, I forget what the percentages are, but we've all heard these. The percentage of what's communicated between individuals is something like 17% the words we use, and there's whole other levels going on. There's a whole other transference of energy. And if you're not being authentic about that, um, people will pick up on it. And that's one thing I've noticed with the new online marketing world, is there are some gurus out there selling absolute garbage who have become very skilled at appearing to be authentic. I
mm,
won't name names, but mega names in the online world, and they've become very skilled at seeming to be authentic. So you want to be genuinely authentic. And then the third piece was scripts versus non-scripts. How in the world can you be authentic following a script that somebody else wrote for you?
Yeah. So,
Right? You can't. You can't. You're going to feel inside very uncomfortable using a script because it doesn't come naturally. It shouldn't. And
mhm,
I like to use the example of smoking. If anyone can ever look back and remember the very first time they inhaled a cigarette, how
yeah.
their body reacted,
Yeah.
right? Now,
Yeah.
sure, if you continue smoking, eventually your body will give up and say, okay, you're a complete idiot. I guess this is the new way we're going to do things.
Yeah.
And
I'm
you
used
stop
to it.
coughing and hacking and all that. So eventually you'll get used to it. Who wants to go through that process to learn how to sell with scripts? And there are people that are very successful. Let me make this clear. There are people who are extremely successful selling using scripts because that's their personality. The way I do things is only for people who, like yourself, like myself, do not feel authentic, selling that way. So yeah, don't follow scripts. Just be you. And you can, and again, it helps a lot if you start off the conversation with, look, I got to be honest. I don't know if I can help you or not, but I'm going to ask you a series of questions to try to understand what you got going on. And if I think I can help you, we can look at different options towards the end of this conversation. And together, that's a key word. Again, not a script, but there are certain keywords I like to use inside my framework. Together, we'll figure out at the end whether we're a good fit or not. If you start off your calls just with that alone, it will take off all the pressure from you and the prospect, and the call will go much, much smoother. And then getting back to what you asked me earlier, Katrina, what is that one question that you
Mm.
circle back to, that critical linchpin to close the sale, right? That could be the question. So Katrina, do you remember at the beginning of this call, I said together at the end, we'll figure out together whether we're a good fit or not. So what do you think? Do you think we're a good fit or
Yeah.
not?
Right. Yeah. And so,
Boom. That's it. Yeah, I think we're a good fit, Bill. What's next? Okay, well, I'll send over the contract, blah, 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 with all the deliverables. There'll be a payment, and then you go from there. But that's it. That could be your one big, scary closing question at the end. So, what do you think? Do you think we're a good fit or not? And let them tell you.
yeah, right.
Nine
That
times
changes it,
out of
doesn't it?
10, they'll say yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about so many things. I'm thinking about before I came to sales calls, and I didn't have that framework down. So I didn't really know where we were going in the process. So I didn't know how to get to that point where I said, what do you think? I didn't know we were going there. So I think
Yeah.
that's important if people have that, whatever the process looks like in your call, like discovery and then reiterating and then maybe diving in a little bit more to see whether it's right. And then I think there's that. So if we could finish on that possibly, on
Yes.
what you would say would be the key steps inside a sales call that someone could sort of framework around just to get them started.
Right. Sure. And just as a small segue to that, I wanted to I wanted to offer something to your audience that I haven't offered before, Katrina, and that
Okay.
is I have thought of putting together a very well, it's beyond thinking about it. I am going to do it. I just have to find the time. But I am going to put together a very short, condensed yet highly powerful training to get people on the right path to learn how to sell. I'm envisioning that someone can get through this in maybe 2 hours. And so I'm going to try to condense 40 plus years experience into 2 hours with just no fluff, just the
Okay.
essentials.
Yeah.
Um, and I would really love people's input as to what they would like to see in that training. Again, I'm trying to get to to know my ideal avatar, which are people who are either fearful of selling or struggle with selling, don't want to feel salesy and all of that. So if anyone watching this wants to send me an email with butterfly in the subject line, I will send them. It's not ready yet. I've got nothing, but I will send them the complete training absolutely free. I don't want a penny. And all I ask is that people give me feedback on what was, what they'd like to see in it that wasn't in it, what they thought wasn't necessary, just feedback basically, so that by the time I eventually do go to market with it, and it's going to be something super affordable. I don't know the price point yet, but maybe, I don't know, a couple of $100, or I don't know yet. But this is not a way for me to make money. I don't want to make money. I don't want to make money from selling training on how to sell. I make my money closing sales. That's what I do. But anyway, I didn't want to get off on a tangent, but yeah, I'm happy to do that once it's ready to send it to people. But just for the sake of this call, the best thing I can say is, the best tip I can give is to work with those two bookends. Open your call with, I don't know if I'm going to be able to help you or not, and I don't know if we're a good fit or not. I need to ask a series of questions to understand your situation. And if it does seem like you've got problems that I can help with, and you like everything you hear about the solutions I've got, we'll figure out together at the end, if you think we're a good fit or not, or if you think we're a good fit or not.
Yeah.
Just start your calls off with that. And then the other end of the bookend is when you get to the end of the call. So, we agreed at the beginning of the call that you'd let me know if you thought we are a good fit or not. From everything you've heard today on this call, what do you think? Do you think we're a good fit? And then don't say anything. Just ask the question and let them answer. You'll be shocked at how many times people say, yeah, you know what? I really do. What's the next steps? How do we get started?
Yeah, great.
What do we do next? So that would be, in kind of 2 minutes, and it's hard for me to say anything in 2 minutes, but in
It's
2 minutes,
a
that's the best
experience.
advice I can give for a sales call, the actual practical aspects of it. Now, of course, there's stuff that goes in to the middle of that that's important.
Yeah.
And that's the framework that I'm going to put into this training, the beginning, the middle, and the end, the close, so to speak. But yeah, that would be the best tip I could give in the short period.
It's been fantastic talking to you about sales. Been awesome chatting with you about that. Just to end on that, I think you've got a quote on your Facebook page. Is it "Don't sell, just help people buy"? Is that right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people remember that, then it's pretty easy from there on in, isn't it? It's like, okay, does this fit for you or not? So on that note, guys,
Yeah.
if you are looking for some help around sales, contact Bill. I'll have all of the details in the chat below. And I'll pop his email in there that you can send an email to with Butterfly in the description, so that you can get some of this training firsthand. Any other questions around sales, guys, by all means, drop it in the comments. I'm sure Bill will be happy to answer them as they come through. It's for some of you.
100%.
Thank you, Bill. For some of you, it's super easy. For some of us, it's not, but then we get there eventually because of necessity. So thank you so much, Bill, for your time. It's been awesome speaking with you.
No, thank you, Katrina. It's been great. Thanks for having me. I hope that there was some information on this episode that will help people. And I would love to get into a conversation one day with you to see, what flipped the switch for you. How did you make that transition from being fearful and nervous and hating sales to eventually figuring out that actually it's a skill I need to learn, and how you went about that process. That would be a fascinating journey to hear about.
Yeah, well, I may have to share that one. There's a story in everything. I think when it comes to business, we'll get to those points. So there's definitely a story there. So
Yeah.
we'll save that one for another time, shall we? All right. Thank
Absolutely,
you so much, Phil.
absolutely.
Thanks,
The
everyone.
sequel. Thank you, Katrina.
The sequel
Take
to
care.